So, how we look and feel about ourselves is so intrinsic to our confidence when it comes to getting in front of our audiences, whether that's on stage or on camera. And for a lot of women that I work with, sort of around sort of 40s, 50s, we're all going through this experience of our hormones changing, our bodies changing. And for some of us, one of the symptoms of that is thinning hair or hair loss. And that can be quite devastating. So I am super excited to introduce my guest today. She is known as the Alopecia Angel. Her name is Johanna Dalman. Johanna, please tell everyone about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're
So,
welcome.
my own situation with alopecia started back when I was in my 30s. I was at the peak of my health, definitely the fittest amongst my friends and family members. And I went into the hair salon to get my highlights done, routine highlights. And my hairdresser of over 30 years told me, Johanna, you have alopecia. You need to go see a doctor. He found one small bald spot in the back of my head. And this term, alopecia, was very confusing. It was the first time I had ever heard it. So I grabbed my phone and started searching online, started seeing what I could find. And as I was doing this, I saw nothing but negativity, nothing but no cure this, no cure that. A lot of people's own situations where it was progressing from alopecia areata, which is my diagnosis or what was my diagnosis, to alopecia totalis, which is complete baldness, and then alopecia universalis, which is complete hairlessness, no eyebrows, no eyelashes, no body hair. And this was all of it was very uncertain, very scary for me. And what I know now is that alopecia is the medical term for hair loss. So if you have
Mm.
thinning hair, this is under that alopecia umbrella. If you have scarring alopecia, it's under this umbrella. If you have autoimmune alopecia like I had, it's under this umbrella. If you have postpartum hair loss, thyroid, stress related, menopausal, hormone induced, whatever type of hair loss, it's under this medical term of alopecia. So
So
let
it's
me
kind of like a big umbrella
exactly.
that covers so many different things. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. And so my journey took around 4 years. And what transpired was me trying to heal myself. I had eventually, throughout those 4 years, lost over 50% of my hair, lost eyelashes, eyebrows, and an inch extra of forehead. An inch is
Wow.
around like 2.5 centimeters extra of forehead, which was really
Mm.
big. I mean, I already have a big forehead, so then you can only imagine how big it actually got. And it was progressing. It was one bald spot to a second to a third, a fourth. And what happens is that they start connecting. And when they start
Mm.
connecting, they create more and more hair loss. On top of it, I also had telogen effluvium or diffuse, which is all over hair loss. So I had two types of hair loss going on all at the same time. So I was
Wow.
panicking. And as someone in transition, in corporate in life, moving from the US to Europe to follow my fiance, now husband, to all the transitions of one country to another, one health system to another,
Mm.
one way of life to another way of life. It was all this transition that where alopecia was happening and where things got worse. It got worse because the
Mm.
doctors in the Netherlands were zero help. It got worse because I didn't have access to testing that I would have had access to in the US. But because I wasn't personally there or didn't have healthcare at the time in the
Mm.
US, only in the Netherlands, it was one of those things where you couldn't do things remotely, you couldn't do things abroad. And so the struggle actually became more and more prevalent, more and more
Yeah.
frustrating, more and more upsetting. And I found myself more and more having bouts of crying spells on the bathroom floor, not knowing what to do, who to talk to, how to research. And it was only in my times where I was doing as much as possible, trialing and erroring all the different things, from the lotions to the potions to the serums to I even tried some medications at one point, but I realized it A wasn't sustainable, B the side effects were too great that I didn't want to
Mm.
endure, and three, because I had just gotten married, I also wanted to protect my fertility. And then, of
Yeah.
course, trying to find a job. So I was in the Netherlands trying to find a job, trying to reestablish life.
Yeah.
Knew it in the US. And so this was right in the middle of everything. And it was this tsunami. It was a big tsunami of sorts, internally, externally, mentally, emotionally. It was
Yeah.
a massive hurricane, tsunami, tidal wave of sorts. And
Yeah. So,
it,
Johanna, I just want to ask you because you mentioned that your kind of alopecia was autoimmune um,
yes.
disease. So, do you think that because I'm fascinated by autoimmune disease, and for anyone who doesn't quite understand what that is, it's when your body's own immune system starts attacking your body, thinking it's something that's not supposed to be there. So, there are all sorts of autoimmune diseases. But the fact that you had something that was attacking your body and making you look so very different and
Mhm.
feel so very different about yourself at a time when, as you say, you're going through massive transition, moving countries, getting married, looking for new jobs. Do you think that the stress of all that was the kickstart for the autoimmune, or did you have another theory around it? I'm just curious.
Well, let me just put it out there that fast forward to today, I'm 45 and I have tons of hair.
Yeah,
And
you've got gorgeous hair.
you can tell, A, it's not a wig because you can see the gray hairs, right? So you can tell it's not a wig. Plus, you can tell also the highlights, right? The
Yeah,
part of the highlights. So let's just really be very transparent.
yeah.
Um, but the other thing is that I grow an inch of hair. So that same inch that I grew back from the hairline, now I grow an inch of hair a month. So age is not a factor in terms of hair loss.
Mm,
Stress does play a part, but there's different types of stress. And on top of it, if you start looking at maybe your own personal situation, or even if I were to look at my own situation, or even at anyone else's situation, it's never just one thing.
mm,
It never is just stress. Because if it was
yeah.
just stress, then, we could de-stress and then things would go back to normal. But that's not the case. Things don't go
Mm,
back to normal even after, de-stressing or even after implementing so many things. And so
mm,
the thing, it's like we have to see this as a multifactorial situation. For me, it's been over 9 years now, 9.5, of being in complete remission from my alopecia. I've never had hair
wow.
loss since, not even after COVID, not even after a pregnancy at 40 in the Netherlands,
Hmm.
not even, with the different moves, because from the Netherlands, we moved to Japan and then we moved back to the US. So even during stressful times that, clearly at some point life gives you,
Yeah.
hair loss was never a thing. And so I'm telling you here and now that you can take control of your hair loss, whatever type it is, and you can do something about it naturally and holistically to reverse it. And this is exactly what led me into entrepreneurship, what led me to have my mission and my calling and my purpose was through the pain,
Mm,
the struggle that I went through. And because of this pain and struggle, I created this program in order to help people worldwide heal and reverse their hair loss, their alopecia naturally. So we
yeah.
offer functional medicine testing worldwide. So you don't need to be a resident of the US. You don't need to be in person. These are kits that we ship to you directly. They go to laboratories and we get all the information. And these are very comprehensive. Healthcare, health insurance won't cover it. They don't cover it in
Mm,
the West. They don't cover it abroad. And I will say, as someone, as an expat who's lived in 5 different countries, the healthcare system in every country has been horrific, absolutely horrific. And I think the worst by far was the Netherlands, by far. The US isn't perfect by any stretch. It's not. But at least
mm,
we have options and we have choices. And this is the key, is to have options and choices because of my situation and because of where I was living, because of course, then, during COVID and doing whatnot, all these things happened and was at a standstill. You couldn't travel, you couldn't do a lot of things.
Yeah.
This is where having access and options is to your benefit in the long run. Because had I had options to gold standard testing, I think I could have healed a lot sooner. I think I could have helped my situation a lot better. I healed without
Yeah.
testing, but again, it took me 4 years. And then again, at what cost? That's a lot of time. It's a lot of energy and effort. And
Yeah.
at the same time, it's like we can do this in a lot sooner, condensed version. So now I have clients seeing hair growth in less than 8 weeks. And that's exactly the type of program that I would have wanted to join. So this is what I created for my clients, because the thing is that waiting is not a strategy. So if you have hair loss today, you need to do something about it, because much like the check engine light on your car, it's not going to go away until you get a full diagnostics, until you look
Yeah.
underneath the hood and you start seeing what's going on. Because if you think
Yeah.
about it, that is hair loss is our check light engine. That is an alarm going off telling
Mm.
us something is imbalanced, something is amiss, something is not working correctly. If it
Yeah.
was
So tell
just
me,
stress, we wouldn't have vicious cycles.
yeah. So it sounds like for 4 years, that's a long time
Yes.
to have to go through that ordeal. How did you manage? How did you cope with just,
How did I cope?
I mean,
It was a lot
you
of faith.
mentioned the before that you ended up in tears
Yep.
and what have you. But I mean, what did it do for your general well-being, for your relationships, for your work life? Well, what?
It was awful. It was awful. It was
Yeah,
one of those things where, I would go into job interviews looking for a job, but I wasn't 100% Johanna, if that
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah,
I
sure.
wasn't 100% there with the job interviews. Like normally I'm, crushing it, answering the questions, extremely confident and extroverted. And I found myself isolating myself more and more from extracurricular activities, from wanting to go out, from wanting to make friends, from wanting to do things. And even with my husband, we were dating right before moving to Europe. We were dating
Mm.
before. And it took me around 6 months to even say anything to him, maybe even more, a few, because when I was first diagnosed, I was like, well, let me see if I can figure this out on my own before I
Yeah,
admit anything, because we're dating and it's just like, at what point, there's a timing of everything when you're dating. You don't want to just say, hey, guess what?
yeah,
You're dating somebody with an autoimmune disease and there's no cure. I'm going to go bald. So it's one of those things where you have to tread lightly. And so I wanted to take, I wanted to fully understand what was happening to me before I could explain it to somebody else who I cared about.
mm,
Right.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
it took me a minute to kind of do my research, talk to doctors, see what the playing field looked like, and then come with him with a game plan. And
yeah,
so that's what happened. But I do know from clients that dating is precarious. It's very off-putting because, again, at what point do you tell the person that you're dating or that you like, hey, I have alopecia, or I'm wearing a wig, or
yeah,
I'm going through this treatment, or I'm trying this, or I'm trying that?
yeah,
What
yeah.
point?
It's a
And
lot to
so
navigate.
there is a lot to navigate just in the dating sense, but outside, let's say outside of the dating sense, because I think the dating sense, this is where that trust builds, where you have the vulnerability, where you are your authentic self.
Mm.
Outside, when you're interviewing, when you're making friends, when you're making chit chat, small talk at a grocery store or a retail store, it's a little different. We can still hide and be cordial and amicable, but
Yeah,
when it's love, it's a little different because you're showing your true colors, you're showing your raw self. And there was these heart to heart moments where I had with my now husband,
mm,
and it it is, a big question mark of how are they going to interpret you? How are they going to feel about what you're about to tell them? And how are
mm,
they going to potentially judge you for it? How are they going to support you, if at all? How are they going to understand you because you don't even understand you at this point. And,
Yeah.
as somebody in her 30s during this time, I didn't even have words to put together for,
Yeah.
like, I didn't even have the vocabulary to even put together all the things, all the ancillary feelings, emotions, the depression, the anxiety, the dry eyes, the dry skin, all the things that came along with alopecia, because it wasn't just hair. It really is.
Right.
And it's never just hair. The hair
Mm.
loss creates a ripple effect into every aspect of our lives, whether it is work, because I've had clients who are teachers where, they have a bald spot here, or they have very female pattern baldness where it's very light right here. And so you can see through, and their
Yeah.
kindergartners in their class are making fun of them. And so it doesn't matter what type of work environment you're in. I've heard it, I've seen it, I felt it, and I have clients who tell me about it as well. So whether it's work, whether it's travel, I have a client who tells me she doesn't want to travel, she doesn't want to live her life to the full extent because her situation with her hair loss is impeding that. I have clients who don't want
Yeah.
to go swimming, who don't want to leave the house on a windy day because their hair will, you know, do all kinds of
Yeah.
things in the wind, and they'll be exposed. And so
Yeah.
I've gone through this. It makes you more of a recluse. It makes you more introverted, even though maybe your personality is not set that way. And so
Yeah.
this is you become a shell of yourself. And this is really detrimental to emotional health, to mental health, to
Yeah.
to community, to how you feel about yourself, but then also how much you put yourself out there, right?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think that's, as you said, there's so many reasons why people's hair comes out or it thins or, but I think, definitely during kind of perimenopause, menopause, a lot of women find that their hair is thinning and they lose confidence in their looks and, it's really difficult to navigate. So what advice would you have for women in that situation? Because obviously we can't go into every reason why hair loss happens, but if it's to do with menopause, is there anything anyone can do in particular that's effective, or how do you see that they could navigate that?
Yep. So our program is proven. It's a proven method. It's tailored to each person. The personalization part is key because we can all be in menopause. I mean, I'm 45, it's around the corner. I can be in
Ooh.
menopause. You can be in menopause. I know, right? Yay. But at the same time, our diet, our lifestyles could also be completely different from one another. And
Yeah,
they probably
yeah,
are,
yeah,
living in different countries, doing different things. Even if we all lived in the same neighborhood, our diet and lifestyle can be completely different. And so
sure.
this is the thing. No serum, no potion, no lotion, no medication, no JAK inhibitor, no cortisone shots, no PRP, no laser cap, no gimmick is getting to the root causes. If there's one thing I want your listeners to take away is that yes, there's a lot of things we can do to improve our hair density, our hair
Mm,
quality, and our hair growth. You can have high performance hair growth at any age. Age is not an excuse for having thinning hair or hair loss. It's not.
yeah,
If that's what your doctors say, go see somebody else. And I would say don't even see a doctor because the doctors come from a mindset and a mind frame and the old archaic education where they're prescribing medications or doing surgeries. So if you
yeah.
don't
They just want to medicate you, and that's it, isn't it? It's like, yeah,
exactly, so if you don't
yeah,
fall into either surgery or medications for life, they've
mm,
got nothing for you. So save
yeah,
your time and save your money with that. The thing is, really, you have to look at the whole person. And so looking at the whole person is not just Johanna, and it's not just the type of hair loss that Johanna has, but it's also, let's say, um, her diet, her lifestyle, the cellular optimization, her metabolic situation. I want to see the whole picture. And the thing is, everyone has a resume, everyone has a rap sheet, everyone has a medical history. I want to see the whole history of said client. And this is where we go through a personalization of 12 pages. And I really ask a lot of deep comprehensive questions so that we can formulate the best strategy for them. The thing
Mm,
is that if we were to have, let's say, a lineup of everybody with the same type of hair loss or the same situation, like you mentioned, of menopause,
mm,
all the underlining issues and triggers are always going to look different. Maybe some
yeah,
overlap, but they're all going to be different because we are
yeah,
so individual. And that's the take home message is that the pills, the serums, the lotions, the potions, the specialty shampoos, none of these things will work for you. So save your money, save your time on that because all of that is just looking at one thing, which is the scalp. And you would
yeah.
think hair loss equals I need to look at scalp health. But in reality, we need to look at what's going on inside because
Mm,
just like the check engine light, you're not going to go look at the tires. You're not going to go get the car wash for the car, right? That's looking at the scalp. It
yeah,
doesn't need a car wash when the check engine light is on. You need to look underneath
yeah,
the hood. You need to look
yeah,
inside and you need to look deeper. And when you
yeah.
look deeper, you find more answers, but these answers are particular to you. They're not
Mm,
necessarily particular to the children I work with, or maybe even, the ladies in their 70s and 80s that I work with as well, who see hair growth. So again,
yeah.
age is not a factor. It's a factor in your biology, but it's not necessarily a factor for you to grow hair. If you're alive and you have a beating heart and a desire to grow your hair, you can grow your hair. And we have a guarantee with that, with our program, because this is how much I know it's proven and it's based 100% on your biology. And everyone's biology is a little different. And this is why we also offer DNA testing because according to your DNA, you can see exactly what you need to be eating, what you need to be doing in order to support your particular DNA. So, for example,
Oh,
I recently,
fascinating.
right?
Yeah.
So
So
recently,
is yeah. So is this to do with I don't know, like maybe people don't understand what heritage they have and that makes a difference, or is it
this isn't about heritage. It's actually DNA. So, for example, you've probably heard of other types of tests like the 23andMe or other types of tests where it tells you your Irish descent or you're from
mm,
Spanish descent or what have you.
yeah,
This is actually looking at your chromosomes, at your X and Y chromosomes, telling you if you're predisposed to Alzheimer's, if you are detoxing correctly, what type of recovery you need, what type of diet is specific to your DNA for you, what is your carb tolerance, what type of exercise you should be doing. And it tells you exactly according to your DNA. So, for example, at 45, I recently got this done and I got my results. My results come back and it's over 100 pages. It even talks to me about my fertility, which I will tell you is a game changer because had I had this reporting, which it's new technology. So had I had this
yeah,
report when I was 5 years old, 10 years old, I could have avoided the yo-yo dieting, the weight loss ups and downs of trying to
yeah.
figure out what diet was perfect for me. And I could have avoided the cystic acne that I had as a teenager and in my 20s. And I know for a fact I could have also avoided my alopecia. And so
Wow.
it's not just stress. And the thing is, when you look deeper, for example, this DNA test gives you deeper information according to you. No doctor can tell you this information because they haven't taken your DNA sample. And so this is
Yeah.
the beauty of having a personalized, tailored, custom-made approach to you. When you have that information, there's no denying it because it's your DNA. No one else's DNA is like this.
Yeah. So tell me, this might sound like a ridiculous question, but if I had that DNA test done and my sister had the same DNA test done, would we have very similar results, or would they be, I mean, assuming that we have the same parents, which I'm assuming we do, um, yeah, would it be vastly different
It would be
or
different. It would be different. And the thing is, they've done studies on twins. So twins with exact DNA. But how is it that when they did this research, and you can find this online, I actually have it on my YouTube channel where they've done this study, but they've studied many, many, many pairs of twins with exact DNA for over 70 years. And the research shows that by the time, later on in life, one twin is always healthier than the other. But
wow,
why is that? It's called epigenetics. And it's because we have the choice to decide every day what diet and what lifestyle we have. We have the choice on what we do, how we live, where we go, who we see, all the things, right? But,
Mm.
and this is what really determines our health. It's the epigenetics aspect. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily the DNA. So, for example, you can have a predisposition to Alzheimer's, but there's also ways for you to mitigate it. You can have a predisposition to breast cancer, but there's also ways for you to, mitigate it and ensure that maybe you have a lesser chance of getting it. But having this DNA test and the results is a game changer for you to understand what your baseline is.
Yeah.
Because once you know your baseline, then you can say, okay, if I were to implement this, this, and this, then I can avoid this, this, and that. And so that's the
Wow.
thing. How is it that we now have an uptick of chronic diseases, heart disease, cancers, autoimmune diseases? Autoimmune
Yeah.
diseases, going back to your initial standpoint, there's over 100 different types of autoimmune diseases that even within my program, I've seen people with 3 and 4 autoimmune diseases, not just hair
Yeah.
loss.
Yeah.
And let's say they have female pattern baldness or all over hair loss, but they also have 2 or 3 autoimmune diseases that are not related to the hair. So, for example, it could be IBS, it could be Crohn's, eczema, psoriasis, multiple
Yeah.
sclerosis, lupus. There's just rheumatoid arthritis. There's
Yeah.
various types of different autoimmune diseases. But what happens when you personalize the program to the person's situation, whether they're on medications or not, whether they just finished chemo or not, whether they have a cancer that's in remission or not, everything gets healthier. So, for example, my fertility upgraded. I got pregnant on the first try at 40 after healing my alopecia. And I've seen it in my clients where they come to me, yes, for hair loss, but they also have other health concerns or goals,
Yeah.
things they want to do, like conceive and have a family or anything else. And all those goals are met. They can reverse and they have reversed their Hashimoto's, their Graves' disease, their second, their third autoimmune disease. And so the thing is, life gets better when you personalize it and you take the natural approach. And if there's anything I've
Yeah.
learned throughout these 10 years of helping thousands of people in over 68 countries, it's really the personalization is key. And this is something that our doctors don't have time for. They don't even have
Mm.
adequate testing for. So this is the disconnect, is the education, the time, and the tools to really help us get to that next level. And this is
It's
why,
ironic, isn't it, really, when you think about it? Because if they did go down that route, then think of all the prevention that there would be and less need to actually seek medical or surgical interventions in the long run.
but that's also the irony to all of it too. It's because pharmaceuticals is a $1 trillion business. So
Yeah.
where would they be if they didn't have medications to put you on long term? So, for example, on my
Yeah.
podcast, I actually just recorded yesterday the side effects to Ozempic and GLP-1 drugs. And the thing is,
Yeah.
people think, especially, in middle age, because of those extra pounds, those extra kilos, as maybe you would
Yeah.
say, is that, oh, well, we'll just take it for a couple months, drop 20 kilos, and then we'll be good. The thing is that new research is coming out. There's over 31 million Americans on these GLP-1 drugs.
Wow.
First and foremost, you need to be on it for life.
31 million, did you say?
31 million. The research just came out. 31 million Americans
Wow.
on these GLP-1 drugs. And guess what? There's a boatload of side effects, including going blind, organ
Yeah.
failure, hair loss, and so many others that I can't remember at the moment. But I just recorded the podcast yesterday. And this is the thing, is that medications are not the quick fix. Medications are
No.
not going to fix a situation. They're only just going to open a door to more harmful side
Yeah.
effects and health issues. Imagine going blind
Yeah.
just because you just wanted to try to lose weight. And this is it. There's
Yeah.
ways to look at your hormones, look at your thyroid, look at all the aspects of your health to optimize so that you can not just have your hair, but have your health back.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned how much pharma make from all of this,
Yeah.
but also the beauty industry. I mean, think of all those
Yeah.
hair products. I mean, last week I was thinking, oh, my hair is a lot thinner than it used to be. Mm, let me see if I can find a shampoo that will help fix it. And I spent about 20 minutes looking at all these different shampoos and stuff. And I was like, wow, I just didn't even know where to start. And I ended up picking up one that said it had collagen and biotin because I'd read that collagen and biotin help your promote your hair growth. So I thought, well, when I bought it, I was thinking, well, I wonder if there is collagen and biotin in this. how is it getting into my head? Like, I don't know, but I just thought I'll just give it a go because I also think that a lot of what how we heal ourselves is also about how we change our perception of ourselves as well. Um, so if you want to put it in a really simple term, like having a positive mindset, belief in what you're doing is actually going to work, that kind of stuff. Because I think that's quite integral to people feeling better. Obviously, there's other interventions and other aspects that will help improve your health and well-being even quicker. But I think that's a really important aspect because if you go into something, doesn't matter what it is, that's going to help to heal you. If you don't believe it's going to happen, then it probably won't. Is that something that forms part of your work?
So I hear you, and then I do see where you're coming from. So, for example, in my path, when I didn't have a guide, I didn't have a program, I didn't have a coach or anything else to lean on, I had my faith. Um,
Mm,
Not necessarily a religious person, even though that was my background and upbringing, but I'm
mm,
more spiritual. And yes, I do believe in God. And yes, I do believe in the universe and source. And yes, I do believe that there's a higher power. And I had faith. And faith is something that you feel, you sense, you you just innately feel, just like love. You feel it. You can't see it necessarily, but you feel it.
mm,
And I leaned on my faith through the darkest times, and I always do, but I'm also in gratitude a lot of times, even when, you know, just 10 years ago or more, it was a dark time. So I always try to look at the bright side of things. And
mm,
the one question that led me to the finish line, to being done with alopecia once and for all, was if I always had big curly hair, why would I be losing it now? And
mm,
that's just it. That is that question that I want to, plant into everyone's mind. Don't
mm.
question you. You are a beautiful vessel. You are a magical being. You are a human that without thinking, without having to do anything, you naturally breathe, you naturally have a beating heart, you naturally have organs that do things for you. We have an amazing body that does a
Yeah,
lot of things without us having to think, turn on, or anything else. We don't have to be plugged in.
yeah.
And so this is the thing. We just need to support the body naturally. And if we go back to a stronger foundation, a personalized, tailored foundation to what we need, this is where we see all the results. And
Mm,
so we can't lean on the beauty industry. We can't lean on the pharmaceutical industry, the medications, or even the doctors, because again,
mm,
the knowledge, the experience, and the results, look for results, are not there. And so this is
mm.
it, is that you can't support the body with just a shampoo. You can't support the body with a
Yeah,
medication. That's not supporting. That's
yeah,
just putting a band-aid over a situation that's yelling for help. And so
yeah.
this is it, is that when you support the body from the ground up, from the inside out, you have nothing but positive results, positive situations that happen. And I will tell you, with my menopausal clients, my clients anywhere from 45 to 65, not only do they get their hair growth, but they do lose weight. They do see clearer skin. The brain fog lifts. They are sleeping better. Their other health concerns go away, whether it's constipation, hemorrhoids, migraines, eczema, or anything else. Everything
Mm,
subsides. And so this is the beauty of really tailoring it to each person, focusing on what your body needs and
yeah,
supporting it step by step.
yeah. Beautiful. I've just got another question, and I'm going to ask this because I know that there are people out there who will be thinking this,
Sure.
especially when it comes to something like menopause and our bodies change, and that's just part of life. For those people who say, "Look, it's just how it is. That's what the body does. Suck it up and get on with it." What's your response to that kind of thought?
I actually don't believe that. We are a product of our belief. of our of what we believe. So if you believe you can run a marathon, you can. If you believe you
Yeah.
can't, then you can't and you
Yeah.
won't.
Yeah.
So you have to believe. And I always say that the first step in doing anything is believing. You have to believe you can do it. Maybe not necessarily by yourself, but maybe, for example, in this marathon example, you get a coach, you join a running
Mm.
club, you get a good pair of tennis shoes, and you
Yeah.
start by walking, then jogging, and maybe you start with a 1K, maybe a 5K, a 3K, and you move on up until, the 26 miles of what it is. So this
Yeah.
is the thing. We're not going to jump from 1 mile all the way to 26 miles overnight. But if you take it step by step, then you can reach it. And so the thing is, I love to get inspiration from other people. This is why on my YouTube and on my podcast, I showcase so many client testimonials, even years later. So, for example, they were my client, let's say 3 years ago, 4 years ago. They saw the hair growth. 4 years later, they come back on the podcast and they still have their hair growth. Like it
Yeah.
hasn't
That's what you want to
changed.
know, isn't it?
Yeah, you want to know,
Yeah.
like, did they keep the results? They
Yeah.
have it. And that's just it. Once you know your triggers, your blind spots, what is holding you back from having your full hair growth, you can already know it and not have to deal with it anymore. And then on top of it, you can control it. So, for example, in
Yeah.
this case, I already know what my triggers, my blind spots are. I know exactly what I need to do, not just for these last 10 years, but for the rest of my life. And then
Yeah.
avoid alopecia altogether, avoid hair loss altogether, even in stressful times, even when, life gives you life, but you can still control it because you already know what your body needs for, to thrive. And I think that's
Yeah.
the beauty of it. We can do anything
Yeah.
at any age. I've seen articles where a 102-year-old is lifting weights and she's champion of, such lift weighting competitions. I've seen 90-year-olds do yoga and Pilates. I actually had an 82-year-old in my Pilates class the other day. We started talking, we became friends. She said something funny to me. She's like, the 90s are overrated. She's like, I don't want to get there. So, this is an 82-year-old who's fit, who's doing Pilates, who's stretching herself, who's doing something, who's being active. We have a
Yeah.
choice to either promote health or continue with our health decline. That is a
Yeah.
choice we take every day. We have a choice to eat the right foods or bad foods.
Yeah.
Have a choice
Absolutely.
to do X or Z. The thing is, life is a choice. And even though you may have a diagnosis of any type of hair loss, I will say that you can backtrack, you can fix it. It's never too late. It's never too late. I've had clients 40 years with being completely bald who see full hair growth. I've seen clients,
Wow.
yes. And the thing is, it's never too late. Like I said, but you have to want this and you have to believe you can have it because you
Does
can.
that
Just
go for men as well, Johanna?
no, I actually don't work with men or boys unless it's autoimmune. Only
Yeah.
autoimmune for children and for men. If it's
Okay.
male pattern baldness where it's, all bald right here for
Yeah.
men, I don't work with that. It wasn't my
Yeah.
situation, so I can't really
Yeah.
help.
Totally get that. I just thought I'd ask the question because I suddenly thought,
Yeah.
oh, my husband hears this, he might think, oh.
I don't know. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah. Autoimmune for men and children. And then for women, it's all different types of hair loss, including scarring alopecia. And even with scarring alopecia, the thing is, hair loss is a forest fire, but more so in scarring alopecia. So when you
What is that? Sorry, I don't know. I haven't heard of
scarring
that before.
alopecia is where the follicles scar. And so this
Oh,
is where it makes it impossible for the hair to come back.
yeah.
So
What causes that?
a whole host of things, but there's no direct correlation to say this caused it. It would look different, just like for autoimmune or just even for regular hair loss. It would look
Okay.
different for each person. And so this is why that evaluation is so key. This is
Mm,
why asking more questions is so key. You can't just chalk it up and say, oh, it's genetics. Oh, it's this. Because we know now with epigenetics that you can control the outcomes of your health and wellness by 85% or more. So if we can control our outcomes, then we're doing something either unknowingly or knowingly that's hindering our health and our hair growth process.
yeah, so true. So true across all of our health, not just our hair health. Yeah,
It's all
yeah.
connected. It's
It
all connected.
is, isn't it?
It is.
Johanna, it's been absolute. pleasure to talk to you today. And it's been a real eye opener as well for me because I there was me just thinking, oh, it's probably just, just adjust your hormones and,
Oh no.
things will shift. But it's been amazing. So how can people get in touch with you if they would like to know more about your programs and what you do?
AlopeciaAngel.com is where you can find me. I'm on YouTube. I have a podcast, Alopecia Angel Awaken to Hair Growth, Instagram, Facebook. We have a free training going on. So I invite you to take and watch this 30-minute quick free training so you can understand a little bit more of how this personalization aspect works inside our program.
Oh, well, I will put all those details into the show notes. And thank you once again. And viewers, listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, then please do like and subscribe, tell all your friends, and tell everyone you know about Johanna and her beautiful work. And may you all have beautiful heads of hair.
It's
Take
a
care.
choice. It's a choice.